have three speakers tonight. Our first one is Dr. Carl Milks. I've known him since 1979. He is an immunologist who has a practice in Honesdale and in Clark Summit. And he's going to talk to us about indoor air pollution, and I don't know what else. And you can say anything else about yourself that I didn't. Okay, so let's welcome Dr. Milks.
Get this up. So what I would like to do is just quickly go through some slides and then open it up for questions. People always have a lot of questions about allergies, and really what we're talking about tonight are indoor air pollution. Everybody knows about the outdoor air pollution and the effects and how much trouble it's caused. But I focus a lot on indoor air pollution with my patients. So, air pollution is contamination of the air by particles and gases that are harmful. So both indoors and outdoors. You can have poisonous gases, for example, if you get overzealous and you pour bleach in your toilet and then pour some ammonia in there for good measure, you get chlorine gas, and that's poisonous.
Can everybody hear him?
No.
Okay.
No?
Can you
It's a little.
maybe stand closer to us, maybe?
Okay, but I still need.
Oh, you need to
Yeah,
see your
still-
notes.
Yeah, still need to see this because
Okay.
I don't have my laptop in front of me. So poisonous gases are things that get released in the air, usually accidentally. Gas from a gas stove, carbon monoxide are poisonous gases. Noxious particles and chemicals are things lots of times we introduce into our environment. For example, whenever you buy new carpeting, whenever you buy new furniture, whenever you buy new anything, many of these things are particles that are glued together, and the glue, the paint that we use, the ceiling tiles, almost everything are made with petroleum products, and they off-gas formaldehyde for several months and sometimes several years, depending on the product. That's an irritant, and that's what, when you get in a new car, when you get a new carpet, you get all these odors, and not all of them are formaldehyde. Of course, a lot of them are other chemicals, volatile chemicals that off-gas from these new products. When my wife and I built our office in Honesdale, because I'm an allergist, we put a HEPA filter in the air delivery system. We didn't have any carpet in the whole office. We had tile, and we tried to make it as allergy-free as possible. But you can't build a new building without building materials that are available. And so for several months, because it was a nice new building, I had people come in and complained of irritation of their throat or their eyes. Sometimes they've developed a cough because of noxious gases. These are irritants in our environment, and unfortunately we introduce them. The third thing that are indoors that cause problems are allergens, of course, and that's what I deal with. Pets that we bring in the house, mold if you don't maintain your house well, if you have dampness, if you have flooding, if you keep a lot of junk in your basement, you're going to get mold spores. And then, of course, there are those cute dust mites that live on skin cells and don't hurt anything unless you're allergic to them. So we talked a little bit about the chlorine, bleach, carbon monoxide, of course. If you don't maintain your heating system, it is a poison. Aerosolized chemicals, antivirals. Anybody here use Lysol? I wouldn't have Lysol in my house. Lysol is an antiviral and antiseptic. And anything that would kill a virus can harm a human cell. Viruses are either DNA, which is the nuclear material of living things, or RNA, which is the template that takes the message from the DNA, the encoded message, to the cell factory to make whatever that cell's making. So the RNA is the messenger, is the template that comes off from the DNA. Viruses attack a cell, take over a cell, like commandos taking over a GM plant and making tanks instead of making cars or trucks. And so these viruses will take over a cell. So anything that would damage a virus, could kill a virus, could damage a human cell, could damage any cell. And damaged cells are what become rogue cells, what become cancers. Not only do those cells die if they've been damaged, but they can also become carcinogens. So if it says to use with adequate ventilation, it's poisonous. Think about it. If it says use with adequate, it's either noxious or it's poisonous, or both. So allergens, proteins, they're individual. This is what I do. It's very common. Back in the olden days when I was in medical school, they taught us that 1 out of 5 people had allergies, but only half of the people were really affected by them. Now that number has doubled since the late 60s, early 70s when I was in school, in some schools. And not only airborne allergies, but asthma, eczema, food allergies. I bet, well, I was a pediatrician for 24 years, around here mostly, for those people who didn't know that. And I'll bet in 24 years of pediatrics, I didn't have 2 handfuls of kids that were allergic to peanuts. And now every classroom has 1 or 2 kids.
Why is that?
Yeah, we'll save that for later. That's a good question. That's a good question. If I knew the real answer, I'd be famous. Go ahead. Irritants. Irritants are chemicals and particles in the air that are noxious to human mucosa and skin. Dust, not just the dust mite, but dust is a whole combination. House dust is different from road dust, is different from other dust, cement dust. But dust in itself is an irritant. Smoke, of course. And even smoke you can't see, other volatile organic chemicals. I had a very, very good friend who developed a little dry cough. And I was asking her about it, and I thought maybe it was just a viral thing. But it persisted. One time I was over her house, and she opened up her pellet stove to fill it. And she opened it up from the top and poured the pellets in. And you didn't see any smoke coming out. You saw heat, the fumes. And I said, I know why you're coughing. You know, you're irritant. You have an irritant reaction to the fumes that are coming in. When she changed from the pellet stove to a regular wood burning stove, her cough disappeared. So a lot of the irritants are things we bring in, and that's really what I want to talk about mostly tonight. And then carcinogens are smoke, and many of these things, unfortunately, are things we bring into our house and cause air pollution, not intentionally, of course, but unintentionally. Many of the people that I see who come to my office with a runny nose or a stuffy nose come in for allergy testing to see what they're allergic to so they can avoid it. And that's always my main treatment of allergies is avoidance. Identify the allergen, and so you can avoid it. So you don't have to take medicine. So you feel better with less medicine. That's always, that's my philosophy. So 60% of the people who come in to either an ENT, a ear, nose, and throat doctor, or an allergist, who have a stuffy nose or runny nose, part of their problem is non-allergic rhinitis, what I call a cranky nose. It has many different names. It's called vasomotor rhinitis. It can be from medicines, especially blood pressure medicines. If you're hypothyroid, you can have a stuffy nose. So there's some medical conditions, nasal polyps. But many of the people who have this are just have a sensitive nose. More common in women than men, more common when you get to be middle-aged than when you're younger. But men have this, kids have this, it's very common. So it's where your nose reacts to cold air. Alcohol will make some people's nose run, the kind you drink. Cold air is called skier's nose. Cooking odors will do this, called gustatory rhinitis. Rhinitis just means a runny nose, inflamed nose. But one of the things that commonly cause it are flowers and plants and things that we use, that we bring into our house to make our house smell good. People who say they're allergic to lilies, or people who say they're allergic to roses, are not, or incense, are not really allergic to those things. They're sensitive to those. Flowers are meant to be outdoors. Flowers have strong scents that's supposed to carry for miles to attract insects and to pollinate them. So flowers that we think of, colored flowers, are attractants. And so the bees come and they take it from one place to another. They're heavy, the pollen is heavy and it's sticky, and so that insects can take it from place to place. That's not the kind of plants that people are allergic to. People are allergic to tree pollen, most of which you don't see. You don't notice the tree flowers. The catkins that hang down from the birch in the spring are the flowers. I've been looking for it. I'm still not sure exactly what oak flowers look like, not much of anything. But the flowers that you see on trees are not allergenic because they're insect pollinated. The things that you get allergic to are airborne and that travel for hundreds of miles. So you're not allergic to roses. The scent for some people, it irritates either their nose or their lungs. So those are irritants that affect non-allergic rhinitis. Candles, big business, approaching $2 billion a year in the United States. Big business. I've never really liked candles, scented candles much. I always liked candles on the table. But our house burned up last year from candles, and so I'm really not big on candles. and my grandson at Easter was so upset. He just turned 4. He wouldn't let his grandmother have candles on the table at Easter because he's so afraid of candles. Because our house burned up. Manopa's house burned up, and so he wouldn't let his Grammy have candles on the table. She literally had to take them off because he was so upset. But the candles have a lot of things in them. Most of scented candles, whether they're organic or not, 60% of them have VOCs, volatile organic compounds, and soot. And soot has all kinds of stuff in it. Soot contains paraffins, which are like waxes, and phthalates, which we'll talk a little about more, and toluene and styrene, which are toxic to the liver in particular. Candles have lead in them, and the other VOCs that are in them are aldehydes, ethanol, methyl alpha ketones, and the soot that gets released from candles is very fine. It's a micron, so that it can get all the way down into the small airways. Just like diesel fumes and cigarette smoke. One of the, partly answer your question now. One of the theories, one of the things that are increasing allergies and asthmas, particularly in cities, are diesel fumes. So in developing countries, allergies are rare, except in their cities. In their cities where there are diesel trucks, mostly in most of the rest of the world, and they're dirty diesel trucks. Believe me, from being in Nepal and Haiti, I can tell you they're not like our diesel. They really belch out black smoke. Diesel fumes, when you pair a diesel fume with an allergen and you present it to a particular strain of guinea pig that are prone to developing asthma type symptoms. So you take egg albumin and you give it to a bunch of guinea pigs and you blow it in their lungs, and then you pair diesel fumes with egg albumin and blow it into other guinea pigs' lungs. The diesel fume is a very strong, what we call an adjuvant. It gooses the immune system to look for, it's so inflammatory, it gooses the immune system to look for trouble and develop an allergic reaction to it. And so that's one of the things, indoor things. And they've shown that kids who live near major highways have much more asthma in the cities than kids who live away from the major arteries. So candles, I'm not big on candles. Okay, good. Yes?
So you're saying we shouldn't really have candles in our house, I mean, for help, I mean, is that what you're basically telling us?
Yes, ma'am. You got it.
I appreciate that.
Yes. No, that's not too, that wasn't too subtle, was it?
No, that's good.
Okay.
You're right at the point, thank you.
Air fresheners. Air fresheners, big business, and they advertise heavily. If your house smells like cooking food, or if it doesn't, you can put air fresheners in that smells like you just made a pumpkin pie or whatever you want. They're willing to sell it to you. But look at the things that in these air fresheners. All these things. Plug-in deodorizers are probably the worst. One that they tested had over 20 different VOCs, 1/3 of which were classed as toxic or hazardous by the EPA. These are not good. Go ahead. Yes?
I just want to add too that I read a report once, I think it was true, that these air fresheners, the plug-in air fresheners, were one of the top 3 causes of fires in apartment complexes in our area. And if anybody ever has tenants or knows someone with tenants, they were starting to ban them and asking tenants never to use them.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
yep.
I know that candles, particularly the Yankee candles, are the worst. The firemen told us after our fire that the Yankee candles, you think they're safe because they're in glass. The glass is so thin, when it gets down to the bottom, it breaks and the glass the wax goes over and catches on fire.
Wow.
Yes. So yeah, they're the worst. Okay. One study where they did this, now this was in 2007. This is an old study. So I'm not bad-mouthing Walgreens. They went in and bought 14 air fresheners from Walgreens. And 12 of the 14 had these phthalates. Even organic and green, so organic and green air fresheners had these in it. And they've been reported to cause hormone abnormalities, childhood developmental problems, and cancer. So shortly after this, Walgreens pulled these products off of their shelves, because of the press that came along with this. Another study, they took off from these were Maine these were top-selling products. They took a detergent, a fabric softener, a dryer sheet, and 3 different air fresheners. One, a solid air freshener, one, an aerosol, and one plug-in. And they tested these. And of these 6 really common products that were used, they had 110 VOCs. 5 of the 6 emitted 1 or more of the carcinogens. And these were hazardous air pollutants that the EPA lists no safe levels. You know, they have different levels of different things. You can have so much carbon monoxide in the house that's safe, and so much of this, and so much. 1/3 of these, you know, were listed as no safe levels at all. Not only that, so they have all these things, but a lot of the people, especially the people I take care of, irritate sensitive upper and lower airways, asthmatics, people with chronic sinus disease, most of which are allergic, and people with eczema. People with eczema have terrible problems. My wife is actually the one who clued me at this in, it must be 35 years ago now, when we lived in Clarion, in Forest City, in western Pennsylvania. We had 3 little kids and a foster child and an exchange student, and so we had to get a new dryer. And in the new dryer, they put this new product called Bounce in the dryer. And after a couple weeks, my wife said, "I know why your nose is so bad." Well, my nose has been running since I could remember. I always had a runny nose, so I didn't know it was any worse than it always had been. But she said, "It's that Bounce that I got with the new dryer." And so since then, I started, you know, talking to people, and kids who were coming in, babies, little 2-3-month-old babies that were coming in with rashes. I started asking them about their laundry products and having them stop this Bounce, you know, for their skin things. Babies who were always with a runny nose, congested nose, you know, including my 4. And so my wife is one who originally told me this. I'm so sensitive. When I go in a room with a new patient, put on clean clothes, you know, you come in, I walk in the room, and within a few minutes, my nose is twitching and
It's the sun in, no, it's the sun in people's eyes.
that's not fair.
Sorry.
Go ahead. So a lot of people are aggravated, and a lot of people don't realize that's what it is. The brain blocks out anything that's always there, unless you have ADD. That's the problem with ADD, because it can't. So if you always use that product, you don't know it's bothering you. But you wash your sheets, you put clean clothes on, you put that in face, and you've got your face in that pillow all night long. So it's allergens and irritants. So people who are sensitive, a lot of times, all they need to do is just stop using this stuff. The rule in my house, my wife is the only one who doesn't sneeze and wheeze and itch in my house. All 4 of
What?
my kids and myself.
Since when was that?
Well,
I'm
now,
always itching, sneezing.
yeah, maybe now you're more
I'm just
sensitive,
sitting
but-
here scratching when I steal.
But in the olden days, the rule in my house was if it smells good, it doesn't come home.
Huh.
And that was not my rule. That was long before I became an allergist. Okay, go ahead. Final advice. Okay, did I go too long? Almost. Just because it's natural doesn't mean it's safe or healthy for everyone. Okay? I don't want people to start throwing things at me. Okay? You know, I said this before, but if it has an odor, even if it's harmless, it still may bother you. Okay? So don't believe everything someone writes or says, especially advertisers. Advertisers are not there to inform you, they're there to sell you things. And that particularly, be suspicious of anyone or any source, particularly if it's on the internet. If they have something to sell, beware. I'm not saying it's always bad, but I don't, my hackles, my antenna go up right away. If I look at something in a website and they have something for sale. So when you get your information, make sure you get it from a reliable source that doesn't have anything to gain. So now, questions.